This feed, it's basically what's going to happen is these fish are going to be fed very shortly, and I'm going to provide some commentary for you folks while that's going on. Feel free to take photos and videos. Just please make sure that we are not using flash. We don't want to use flash anywhere in the aquarium. Not only is it bad for the animals, some of them don't even have eyelids. It's also not great for your photos. In a dark environment like this with lots of acrylic, there will be a glare. So we don't want to be using flash at all. All right, looks like these fish are ready to be fed. They have definitely fallen into a routine. I'm going to start explaining the context of this habitat here. This is Rainbow Reef. It's one of our largest habitats here at Ripley's Aquarium, Canada. It's also our most biodiverse as far as the amount of species we have in here. We have about 100 species of fish in here and about 1,000 individuals. Oh, it looks like they're going for it. Looks like today they are getting little pieces of, I believe that is, might be squid. Most of these guys are omnivores, so they can eat sand meat. They'll typically get things like brine shrimp, nutrition pellets, as well as vegetables like lettuce and bok choy. Now, it's not like the ocean is known for its rolling fields of lettuce and bok choy. Typically, in the wild, they've eaten things like algae and seagrass, but we don't want to disturb natural seagrass populations, so that's why here we feed them supermarket vegetables. It is a win-win. It's actually more nutritious for them, so it's better for the environment and better for these fish. Now, this is a recreation of the sorts of habitats you would find in the Indo-Pacific region of the world. So that would be places like the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, as well as the Great Barrier Reef in northern Australia. It's one of our divers' favorite habitats to dive in. It's a very warm habitat that we have here. It's also bright and colorful, so it's sort of like jumping into Finding Nemo, or for any sci-fi fans in the audience, Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, I actually want to ask the audience a question. Who thinks that coral is a plant? Hands up for plant. All right, how about animal? Hands up for animal. All right, let's see some hands up for animal. How about mineral, like a rock? All right, well, it actually was the second option that's correct. Coral is indeed an animal. Now, structures like this are actually made up of millions of individuals that we call polyps. And the thing about polyps is they actually are translucent, so they don't have color, which might seem a little strange because coral, when we think of coral reefs, we typically think of bright, colorful settings like this. The color actually comes from an algae that the coral has a symbiotic relationship with. We call that algae zooxanthellae. Now, the zooxanthellae and the coral, they do have a mutually beneficial relationship, so the coral gets nutrients from that algae, and the algae gets a place to live. So, this isn't, I got another question for the audience. Who here thinks that this coral is real? Hands up for real. Well, artificial. All right, it's actually artificial coral. Now the reason being is coral structures like this take hundreds, possibly thousands of years to grow, and we've only been open for 11 years, at least all in October. So, we don't have hundreds, possibly thousands of years on our hands. So we did indeed hire a team of artists to create these structures here. So they're actually concrete skeletons covered in non-toxic rubber and non-toxic paint. Now, the other reason why we don't use real coral in here is, like I just said, structures like this would take a very long time to grow, so they do exist out in the wild. We don't want to take coral out of its natural habitat, because unfortunately coral reefs aren't doing well right now, and we don't want to disturb these really important ecosystems and so many animals rely on it. Now, one of the biggest factors to coral not doing well is actually stress. which might seem a little strange to some people, because what would coral have to be stressed about? It just sits there all day. But I'm sure we've all heard of climate change, which is a very, very stressful topic. I definitely understand climate anxiety. I'm a millennial. I was basically born with climate anxiety, so I definitely get it. Now, coral doesn't get climate anxiety from doom scrolling on blue sky. It gets it from the changing water temperature. So just a bit of climate change 101. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. So of course, the climate has changed naturally during that amount of time. Our current climate crisis is a problem though, because there's a type of primate called Homo sapiens, that I'm sure we've all heard of. They're also known as humans. And humans have been burning a lot of fossil fuels in the past 150 years. And this has caused the global CO2 levels to rise in the atmosphere. And the consequence of this is the temperature is raised very quickly, which another natural consequence of that is the temperature of the ocean has changed very quickly. And this is stressing the coral out. Now, when coral gets stressed, it actually expels the algae that lives on its body. So anybody here has ever heard of coral bleaching? That's essentially what that is. They do lose their color because they expel the algae, but losing their color is the least of their worries. They do also lose their source of nutrition when the algae gets expelled. Now, luckily, bleached coral can be recovered, but it is one of the leading causes of coral reefs dying. If it's left unaddressed, the coral will eventually die. Now, another side effect of our current climate crisis on coral reefs is something called ocean acidification. So, the ocean is what we call a carbon sink. So that essentially means that it absorbs carbon, which is technically a good thing. We do want it to do that. That's how it monitors the planet's climate. It's been doing that for millions of years. Other carbon sinks include things like forests, rainforests, wetlands, savannas. The problem is humans are destroying forests, rainforests, wetlands, and savannas, and we are also adding a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels. So unfortunately, the oceans have picked up a lot of slack. Now, when the ocean absorbs too much CO2, it actually changes the chemistry of the water. It lowers the pH level, so it makes the water more acidic than it should be. And unfortunately, one of the side effects of this is the coral can't produce its exoskeleton. So the polyps, they have an exoskeleton made of calcium carbonate. When the water's too acidic, they can't produce that. So it's almost like getting a cavity in your tooth, except they're getting in your exoskeletons. Thankfully, there are things that we can do to help, though. Staying up to date and educating on climate change is a big one, and using your voice to educate other people on climate change. Because the more people know about it, the more people are going to want to hold those with power accountable and make societal changes. You can also do your best to lower your own personal carbon footprint, so walking more instead of driving, making more sustainable purchases, so maybe thinking about where the products you purchase come from, how they get to you. I also want to note on an optimistic note, this is the first time in the history of the planet that an extinction event has been self-aware. So things like asteroids, volcanoes, ice ages, those have never been self-aware before. And I know it's hard to believe, but humans are self-aware. And because we are self-aware and we are good problem solvers, we should be able to fix the issue. Alright, well, like I said, we do have a lot of different species of fish in here. I'm going to point out some of my favorites for you folks. I'm not going to point out every single one, because like I said, there's about 100 species in here, and I know you folks have lives to get back to. So I'm just going to pick some of my favorites in here. One thing you're going to notice is scientists really like to name animals after other animals, which is going to lead me to my first one, this little yellow guy here that just swam away. The white face with the black stripe, and he's coming back towards me now, this guy here. That is a fox-faced rabbitfish. So we got two animals there, we got an animal named after two animals. Now the fox part of their name comes from that long snout that they have. And the rabbit part of their name comes from their lifestyle. They spend a lot of their lives grazing for food. So they're skittish, the same way the rabbits are. Unlike rabbits, though, they do have a defense mechanism. They have these really sharp spikes on their back. We call that the dorsal fin. They can actually raise that up to make themselves larger, so they're less enticing for predators to go after. Another one of my favorites in here is actually named after a fictional animal. We have a few species of unicorn fish in here. You can actually see one in the back there with that long nose-like horn. That's a long-nosed unicorn fish. Here comes another one standing by me right here. And we also have unicorn fish in here that don't even have horns. Now, the cool thing about them is that unicorns aren't real, but I'm sure if they were, they would be herbivores because they're horses with horns. Similarly, unicorn fish here, just like the fox-faced rabbitfish, they spend a lot of time grazing for food. I personally think the shape of their heads kind of remind me of other browsers, like giraffes or horses, or for any dinosaur fans in the audience, dinosaurs. We also have these big guys here, which also is named after another animal. That is a orbital batfish. Now, a few things about the batfish to do with their diet. They actually have a few very strange dietary tendencies. In the wild, they actually will eat algae that looks like human hair. So sometimes when our divers go in here, they have to wear hoods or bandanas because these fish will try to chew on your hair. Now, another thing about their diet in the wild is they do have a habit of following sea turtles around, because it turns out they also really like to eat sea turtle feces. So I guess that's one way of recycling nutrition. And last but not least, for any animation fans in the audience, we do have Dory species from Pixar Classic Finding Nemo. I'm just trying to see if I can find one in here. Oh, yeah, so here comes one right here. So right there. Now, Dory's species is called the palate surgeonfish. So the palate part of their name comes from that blue oval in the middle of the black stripe. If we have any artists in the audience, some palettes the painters use, they have a little hole for your thumb to hold on to, so that's where that part of the name comes from. And the surgeon part of the name actually comes from these spikes. So they didn't show you this in Finding Nemo, but Dory's species does have spikes on their tails. They're very, very sharp. They are a defense mechanism. So the surgeon part of the name is sharp, kind of like a surgeon's scalpel. So that's the other thing. That's where the other part of the name came from. All right, well, I made a great audience. Thanks so much. If you have any questions, feel free to come and find me after. I will be hanging around here for a bit. And enjoy the rest of your week, folks. It's Wednesday. The week's almost halfway over. Cool. All right, enjoy.